Hey there. In our line of work, we constantly wonder why, what drives people to buy instead of rent instead of buy a home. And we get a lot of questions on this. Why would someone choose to live in base housing instead of using that money to invest in the home and their financial future? We hear all kinds of answers like it's easier than to rent, or buying's too difficult, or even worse, renting is cheaper than buying. But in today's episode of the VA Mortgage Minute, brought to you by Veterans Lending Group, we're going to discuss some of these, address some of these issues, and maybe even dispel some of these myths. So, I am David Carter, National Director of Education for Veterans Lending Group and a U.S. Navy retiree. My partner today.
Hey guys, my name is Lee Wynn. I'm with Veterans Lending Group London. I'm a national educator as well as a active loan officer and sales manager for the Silverdale, Washington branch. And a U.S. Navy veteran.
And can't forget that, brother. Can't forget that. Hey, Lee, it's good to see you, brother.
You too, man.
This is something we talk a lot about, especially in this industry and things, and we hear frequently about when we're out talking to folks, when we're out conducting our classes. So I'm going to kind of just turn it over to you and run through some scenarios why it would be more cost effective. It would be better for military members, especially those collecting BAH, to invest their money elsewhere instead of throwing it away in rent and even worse, living in base housing.
Yeah, I mean, renting and versus owning. I mean, a lot of people rent, so I mean, there's kind of a mental aspect of it where it's a status quo. It's something we're comfortable with because it's something buying home is for a lot of people when they're younger, especially for me, for my family who are like who immigrated over in the mid 80s. Home ownership was just something that could only be dreamed about, and that's for a lot of people. So they've always had this really pedestal of home ownership, right? Mm-hmm. So for them, it's like you should only do it when you're settled. But no, you can use it as a tool way to put yourself ahead financially and build up to that one dream home that you've always wanted to get. So let's I want to show you guys kind of the first breakdown in regards to like what it costs to get into home. And we're going to bring up the slide real quick. That way we can kind of see how these numbers play out. So because me and David are both Navy, we use the term shipmate a lot. We're working on making that more into a positive light, right, David?
Oh, it is. It is, brother. Just it is.
It is. We all know that there's a different connotation when you're active duty about that term, but we're working on making it a little bit better. But so we got shipmate and rents a lot, and we got shipmate homeowner. All right, so we're going to compare these two people in regards to the cost of getting into a rental versus getting into a home. For shipmate rents a lot, let's say they go into a place or they're going out, they're finally, let's say they make E4 or E5, or they finally just got married and they're able to live off base, which is a really pretty good deal. So that way you don't have to deal with, people randomly hitting, banging on your door trying to do some room inspections, right? So yeah. Now you got the ability to get BH, rent out of place. So let's say getting into that place is about, $1,500 a month. For some places it's really cheap, and for some places it's really expensive depending on space. So in order to move your stuff into that unit, what do you have to pay up front? You got to pay, your first month's, your last month's, and you got your security deposit, right? Each equaling that 1 month of rent. So $1,500 for first month's, last month's, and deposit. And then you got pet deposit. Let's say you got little fur babies running around, and let's say you move in on the 15th. What happens 16 days later? You are awarded to pay more rent, right? So in a matter of about 60 days, how much have you spent? It's about $6,500.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, yeah. So $6,500. I can tell you that in a lot of states, this will take care of about 70 to 100% of your closing cost, depending on the how much of a house you buy. So you could have just bought a house instead, honestly. You might as well have, right? Now, sure, you can argue that you get your security deposit back and so on and so forth, but to get your security deposit back, you have to put some cleaning budget and time to get that security deposit back. So it kind of cancels itself out in some ways. So it's a lot of money, $6,500, 60 days, gone, right? You will never see 90% of those funds back. You might actually get your security back. A lot of money still. Should make home there. Go $1,000 of earnest money. Now this is probably the minimum, I would say. The best, I I would say the best earnest money deposit is about 1% of the purchase price. Now, keep in mind, the earnest money deposit is like a security deposit where you can get this back at the end of the transaction, like when you close on the house. So not when you move out. So, and this can get credited toward your closing costs. So you don't lose it. It just becomes part of your closing cost. And then the first mortgage is not due for another 30 to 60 days. So how this works is if you get your keys on the 15th of the month, 15th at end of that month, end of next month, and then you pay your first mortgage. Let's say you close on the first and the end of that month, end of next month, and then you pay your first mortgage. So you can go potentially 2 months without having a monthly payment. And if you have a rental payment, between that, we can time it where you're not paying both at the same time. Down payment is zero because it is a VA loan. If that's what we're using, even if you're using a conventional or FHA loan, there is a small down payment depending on your situation. Then we got your first mortgage payment, which is about, let's just say it's equal to that first month's of rent, which is about, it's $1,500 a month. So with that in mind,
in many places it could be even less than that, Lee.
Some places, yeah. If you're in Tennessee,
it's cheaper to buy here than it is to rent.
Yeah, and to kind of add on to that, rent has gone up 17% in the last year, and the thing is, some places don't even have rent control, which means they can charge as much as they want, and they could price you out completely. So, so that's what a lot of people are doing, and people are willing to pay that. And the thing is, that the rough thing about rent is that that's 100% interest rate. Think about that. So that means none of that money is coming back to you at all. At least with the first mortgage payment, even though some of it goes toward interest, some of it goes toward the principal of the loan amount. And the way I always express paying down a mortgage is it's like a forced savings account. So that portion that goes to our principal pays down the equity of this home. So let's say it's a $300,000 house. The loan starts at $300,000. As you pay this down, that balance goes further and further away from that $300,000 value, which means when you sell it, you'll make money. Now, for semi homeowner, when they buy the home, let's just say they get the earnest money deposit back. And let's say, for example, and I want to be very clear about this. This assumes the seller is paying your closing cost. I'll be very clear about that. The seller is paying your closing costs in this scenario. If they're not, then you probably spend about maybe 2%, maybe 3% of the purchase price for closing costs, which depending on the amount, you would probably still have enough of about $65,000 to maybe $8,000, maybe $9,000. Depending on the purchase price. So yeah, if your closing costs got paid for, then all you have to pay is mortgage payment. You're good to go. You owned your own house, and you're probably going to get that money back by the time you sell it in 2 to 3 years. So for a shipmate rental lot, they're going to move in 3 years and lose about $55,500. Now this is a lot of money. Okay, that's some people's like re-enlistment bonus in some cases, right? Or 2 enlistment bonuses. So $55,500 gone. Nothing you'll ever see from this, any bit of it at all. 3 years, and this assumes you don't move every year, and this assumes your rent doesn't go up every year. So it's $1,500 for every month, and for the next 36 months. For 2 years, let's say it's $37,500. Right? It's still about the same rate. Maybe it's a little bit better, but it's a lot of money to just throw away. That's not yours.
Still a lot more than that the closing costs you would have paid.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A lot.
Now, what's cool about shipmate homeowners is that they own the house, they paid down this mortgage, and over the next 3 years, their home has gone up, let's say, an average 5% a year on the value of the house. So this $300,000 house could be now worth $330,000, and you've paid them down about $20,000, $10,000 of the balance. So right there, that's about $5,000 equity. When you house thing back made every time and you have to spend $7,000. Pretty sure that's a pretty good win, I would say. You kind of just got your money back and then some. I have 2 scenarios right now where I have 2 clients that have lived in their house for exactly 24 months. Their mortgage payment was about $1,500 a month, maybe $1,800. After 24 months, they're selling their house. One is selling it and they're making about $60,000, and one's making about $95,000. So if you look at the 2-year loss compared to the 2-year gain by owning a house, that's what, almost $100,000 to $120,000 swing. It's a lot of money, people, that you just be sitting on. And guess what? They're going to the next house zero down. So you get to save all this money. They can reinvest it. They can really set themselves up for a financial future. And they're very young and listed, E3, E5s. So imagine being able to do that. And that's just like the upfront. There's a lot more benefits in owning a home as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and some of the things that we teach in a couple of our classes as well, Lee, as you know, that amount of BAH that you could either give to somebody in rent or give back to the government living in BA based housing, you can instead put all that towards a mortgage and paying a house, and that could be for the average service member who does 6 years and promotes to E5, married. That's almost $125,000 that they could have invested in their future instead of giving it to somebody else or giving it to base house. Now, but we also understand there are situations that that people can't do the buying route because of things going on in their lives. We understand that, but we always recommend to folks take a hard look at this and see what your future looks like and what you want to do, especially financially, because this could make you money in the long run. We use the example of there's a Marine master gunny, I think it was, who retired a couple of years back, who bought a house at every single duty station and now owns 5 properties, all income generating.
Oh yeah, I mean we have the opposite stories where we met E9s that just started using their VA homes.
Oh yeah. Right. And and what's the numbers for E9 with over 20 years of service is like $500,000.
Oh, it's at least now. I mean, those numbers were ran as of like 4 years ago. I mean, with BH have gone up since then. I mean, it could be upwards to $750,000. Who knows?
It's huge amount. Anyway, we discuss a lot of this information and others in our various education classes that we offer, our VA Home Loan Boot Camp, as well as our Serving Realtor Serving Military Clients classes. So please tune into vahomeloanbootcamp.com and check out our other educational opportunities. And if we have a class near you, check our schedule out and attend our live classes. I'm doing one at the end of this week down in Niceville, Florida, at the brand new Black Rifle Coffee location in Niceville. So you can check that out on our calendar. And we do them all over the place. And if there's a need in your area to do a live class, we can also talk about and entertain that as well, because we do this free. It's a service that we provide to you to make sure you and your family and your teammates know and understand your VA home loan benefit. Looks like we have a couple questions in the chat box, Lee. If you want to take one of those and run with it.
All righty. So one question is, I'm currently in military privatized housing. I feel like the BH I am eligible for is way more than the value of the house I meet of the housing I meet the requirements for. If I want to move out, what are my first steps? David, I think you got that one.
Well, if you want to move out of the privatized housing, well, the first thing you have to do is go to your VA home loan specialist, get pre-approved, and find out what your spending power is. That's the first step with any kind of home buying process. You got to make sure you get that pre-approval, not a pre-qualification, but a pre-approval letter that plainly states how much you're approved for. So when you go shopping, you've got that buying power already in hand. And then after that, start looking for a place to live. You can go out and work with a realtor. You can do some of your own research, but you go find a place to live. But once you get through the machinations of making a deal and everything like that and closing, it's just really telling the privatized housing folks that, hey, you're moving out. You can give that 30-day notice and check out of on-base housing, start collecting your BAH, and then move into your new home. That's kind of in a nutshell.
Nailed it. Love it. And then the next one, I currently have a home I want to sell at my duty station, but purchase again at my new duty station using my VA loan. Is this an easy process?
Oh, yeah. Very easy.
There's a lot involved. I would say that because you are selling your own house, but otherwise what's great is when you have people who are like a specialist in regards to this field. They'll be able to kind of tell you like what needs to happen, and as long as you follow those steps, everything will happen relatively smoothly, as best as it can be, right? But yeah, it's not a difficult process in regards to you know, work on selling your current home or even considering renting out your own home, and then buy at the next duty station, and you just do it that way. So,
and this is where we could put that foot stomper of make sure you're working with the VA home loan specialist, because they will make it easier for you.
mm-hmm.
Someone who deals in VA home loans on a regular basis, and not someone who necessarily dabbles in it, but a true VA home loan specialist will make the process a lot easier.
Agreed.
All right, Lee, I think we're coming up to the close of this episode. I just want to also put out again, all our educational products are available online at vahomeloanbootcamp.com. And please check that out. And you will also find our calendar of events there to include our virtual classes as well as our live classes. And if you want to have a live class in your area, please reach out. You can contact me. You can contact Lee. You can contact Alicia, our education assistants. All that information is available on our website. We'd love to hear from you and figure out how we can best support you, your family, and your teammates. So on behalf of Veterans Lending Group, me and Lee, I want to thank you for your time and attention today and for this episode of the VA Mortgage Minute, and we'll presented by Veterans Lending Group, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
See you guys.